Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to the next webinar in the series for everything you wanted to know about sales, but were afraid to ask. And today we're going to be talking about lead generation strategy. You're all very welcome. And let's go straight in. Okay, so using the chat box on the right-hand side, probably of your Zoom screen, I'd be grateful if you just put in where you're calling in from, your profession that you're in. You're a business owner, you're a project manager, you're in sales. Fantastic. And what will you miss the most about quarantine? Because it's not all bad. There are some good bits as well. Just while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you now, I've been in corporate sales for about 30 years or so, and counting, a profession that I know and love. And I'm now a sales coach. I've moved out of corporate land. I'm a sales coach, and I'm also a visiting lecturer at Aston Business School, one of the top 1% business schools in the world. And during my sales career, I've sold deals that of all different financial values, from £100 a month gym membership, and gyms are in big trouble at the minute. We'll go on to those reasons later on, right up to a software outsourcing contract worth well over $1 billion. So, and the principles, though, that I've discovered are all remarkably similar. Some more convoluted, unwieldy, and complex than others, but they all share the same principles. We're also going to be joined by a special guest this morning, Sarah Tomaszewska, Sarah Tomaszewska, and she's going to be talking to us about online advertising. And that's going to be a really important subject, because the consensus is that we're going to need to be talking about generating leads right here, right now. And that's going to be the theme of this morning. Brilliant. So we live in interesting times, as the Chinese would say. So along came a virus. UK economy is forecast to be down 33%. Just say that again, 33% this year. It's only just started to bite. Lots of government schemes in place, depending on which country you're in. In the United Kingdom, we have CBILS and continuous business interruption loan scheme. We have all sorts of things going on, grants and all sorts of things. But in the end of the day, some businesses are going to go to the wall unless you act now and do something about that. Okay, so the economic data are that Heathrow Airport, where I used to work, is 97% down. There are 97% fewer passengers in the month of April than there were in April 2019. That's extraordinary. Car sales are also down 97% year on year. And the last time we sold this few number of cars was way back in 1946, just after the Second World War. Incredible. So the markets were also very nervous. People don't want to hear about waffly, this might happen, that might happen. They want to hear definiteness. So Elon Musk managed to wipe $14 billion off the value of his company, Tesla, earlier on in the week by tweeting that he thinks the share price is too high. I think there's a number of things going on with Elon Musk. Let's not get into that. But anyway, that happened, and the result was 14 billion wiped off the market capitalization of Tesla. Okay, so and now another extraordinary stat is that 50%, half of all working adults, are now being paid by the state. So that's a case of furlough, benefits, universal credit, all sorts of things, all being paid by the state. And I've noticed some behaviors. So some really big companies now are starting to adjust their messages in relation to developing leads, if you like, creating business opportunities for themselves. And now I've noticed Hyundai, if you notice their car adverts, they're generating leads for right here, right now. Stuff like you don't have to go into the showroom, you can just order from the comfort of your home. messages that are helping customers, making it simple for customers to order right here, right now. Now, given the marketing and sales budgets that those companies have, Tesco too, then if they're doing that, they're thinking like that, then why don't we think like that for ourselves? Because I'm guessing we have businesses that are not quite the size of those behemoths, if you like. So let's grab that initiative. Let's start generating business lead generation right here, right now. Okay. Also, some good news is that the Football Premier League is rumoured to start returning soon. We don't really know what form that's going to take. It may be behind closed doors, but what it means is they'll live up to their contractual obligations with people like Sky and others. And the whole business of football will be able to restart. You won't be able to go see matches, not for a few months yet, and we're talking about January next year before any of that starts to happen, but you will at least be able to engage, which is the national sport really, which is football and Premier League in particular. Okay, and as if that wasn't enough, Greggs are reopening their stores behind closed doors in a trial next week. And the vegan sausage roll is making a comeback, and what's bad about that? My cup runneth over. So some fantastic data coming out, and also Sunday, of course, we will see an announcement from the government. Now, some of you will have seen this slide before. It's the typical business-to-business sales process, which you will follow no matter what the value of your deal. Some of these phases might be more complex and unwieldy than others, but you will generally follow all of those phases. They're not in order on the left-hand side. Let me just show you where lead gen comes in. So we've already talked about value proposition, your messages to market, actually what you do, how you make money. We talked about go-to-market strategy and choosing the right channels for your business. And now we're talking about lead generation. This is where that fits in that sales mindset. The rest of the phases, which we're going to talk about next week and the following weeks, right out until the 10th of June, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. UK time. We're going to be talking about deal qualification. Next week on the 13th of May, we're going to talk about pursuit strategy. I'll go in more detail about that later on, perhaps. How to negotiate for yourselves, for your business deals in all walks of life, how to close sales, gain commitment from customers, how to maximize yield. You'll notice, of course, that closing the sale is not the last step in the process. It's the second to last step. Maximizing yield is the last step, where you'll get lots of other opportunities to perhaps work with your client base and maximize sales from it. Okay, moving on then. So lead gen, here's some cold, hard facts for you. There are two types of lead gen: passive lead gen and active lead gen. And there's lead generation around brand awareness, just an overall brand awareness kind of thing. But what we're focused on, because of COVID-19, is generating opportunity for us as businesses right here, right now, to trade our way out of this unheard of, unprecedented economic crisis. And the target markets. I want to talk about target markets, if you like, which is business that you want to attract. And it's no secret, I met my wife online 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. And when I was living with my friend of mine at the time, I'd been renting a room from him. He was also online, but he took a different approach. He would pick up with any kind of relationship. Let's not get into that. It was almost like sweeties from the sweetie jar when it came to that. I knew what I didn't want, and in business, it's important to know the customers that you don't want, because if, as we said before, if there's one thing worse than no business, it's bad business. Now, I am not suggesting that getting married or developing a personal relationship is a business. Not at all. But the dynamics of knowing what you want and what you don't want are really, really important to self. And I didn't want to work with neurotics. So moving on. So it's knowing what you don't want. Okay, so your messaging. And this is both active and passive. So if you're online, I know at least one person is online at the moment on this webinar where their LinkedIn headline says manager at self-employed. That is not the ideal LinkedIn headline because it's too nebulous. It could be anything. It's just too broad. People need to know. We live in a very, what I would call, niche-centric world at the moment, and people need to know precisely what you do in your business for a living. So manager at self-employed, you probably need to be more specific about. You definitely need to be more specific than that, but there will be other examples too. And then I heard a comment during the week, cold calling is dead. Well, I disagree with that. Cold calling is not dead. It has its place. And I received a cold call the very morning after lockdown was announced by the Prime Minister at 8:30. I was somewhat taken aback because I was still, like much of the nation, still in shock that we've got this unprecedented crisis. And I was thinking, my goodness, what does that mean for my family, my loved ones, for my business? And I just wasn't in a state of mind where I wanted to get a cold call. Very few people are. So I just put that out there that we are a month in now. Cold calling is okay, and you need to acquire those skills at some stage because you're going to have, all of us going to have to work harder. We're going to have to lean in, as the expression goes, and get busy generating the right kind of leads for our businesses. Okay, and I'm also going to talk about something called quid pro quo, which is literally this for that. And businesses are hurting. Businesses are hurting. Some of them need to get stuff done, but they've got no budget. I talked to one or two business owners during the week who have literally £5 left in their business bank account because they've got 0% zero revenue, but still got 100% of their costs. So they are really, and they're having to inject their own capital into their businesses. They are by no means unique. I'm not going to ask for a call of names just now. You know who you are, but some businesses are really, really hurting. So if it helps, and there's a quid pro quo, I can do this for you, can you do that for me? That's an okay conversation to get you started if there's stuff that you need to do. And some people are going to be more open to that than others. Okay, carrying on. So those were some cold, hard facts. Let's have a look at some soft, warm facts just now. Okay, and so I want you to be thinking about that. Complete this phrase. It's not what you know, it's, now 99% of you will have said it's who you know. And that will never completely go away, but I think the tables are turning just now. There is a different dynamic coming to the market, and it's this. With the online world, with your online presence, it's not so much about who you know, it's about who knows you. And that means that you're going to have to develop an online presence, an online persona, an online brand, if you like, for people to get to know, to build a relationship with over time so that they understand exactly what Nigel does for a living or what Jamil does for a living. Yes, I like them. They're credible. They have social proof. We'll talk about that later. And I know Jamil, Nigel, Keith, whoever it happens to be. 70% of buyers that come to you will have already done their research before they even get to engage with you on a one-to-one basis, before you even get to have a phone call with them or any kind of messaging dialogue with them. So it's a buying signal of some kind already, and it's up to you for asking great questions to determine whether that's a buying signal that you can act on right now, or whether it's going to be part of a process going forward, or what, for you to discover that. We will talk about next week about asking great questions. We'll talk about more of that. Okay, so I've also heard stop selling number one, because it's tiresome. You've got to discover needs, and you have to get your buying cycle in line with someone's selling cycle, if that kind of translates a little bit. Okay, so if you're trying to sell to someone who's not really in buying mode, that's going to frustrate. It's going to, frustrate you a little bit, but it's going to frustrate them a lot. So they're not receptive to your messages. And part of the art of asking questions is knowing when to sell and knowing when not to sell. Okay, so you have to build relationships and trust. Going back to that, 70% of buyers done their research on you already. So stop selling number two. Discover what your customer needs and when they need it. That's a critical part of the sales process, discovery. Next week, we will talk about how to discover your client's needs. And then getting into their consciousness, if you like. Inform people, again, back online, about your point of view on certain things, your point of view on your business, the business that you're involved in. If you're a virtual administrator, the need for your service has probably never been as great as it is right now. So your collective point of view, what your point of view is on business, on customer service, as it relates to how you could promote or represent one of your virtual administrator customers. That's just for an example, but your point of view on the world, because people want to find out all about you before they get involved with you. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to play this video, and this time around, you'll have discovered by now that this is a re-recording. And there is a reason for that, which I won't go into, but I want to show you just a bit of a light-hearted 55 seconds or so, what happens if you get it wrong. Okay, so here we go. Okay, right. So that's what happens if you get it wrong. If you get the wrong kind of leads, they can be really stinky. They will create lots because the lead is going to require some work from you. So we need to be getting the right kind of leads. So qualifying business is really important. Asking the right kind of questions that we'll talk about next week, really, really important. Okay, so some of you of a certain age will recognize this person. I went for a job interview with this person when his company was a lot smaller, Sun Microsystems, big in the IT world. And I went to see a guy called Scott McNeely. He was the CEO of Sun Microsystems. They're big in financial services, technology. And I asked him about what's your strategy, Scott? Where are we going? He said this: our strategy is to be tactical. Now, let's just say that again. Our strategy is to be tactical. Now, anyone with a business degree or an MBA or something like that is gonna find that really difficult to get their heads around. Our strategy is to be tactical. But what he was fantastic at is recognizing a customer need and tweaking in an engineering IT sense his technology to suit the need of the client in question, and over time, a relatively short period of time, financial services, banks, investment banking, the ability to get into trades and out of trades really, really quickly, really suited Scott's business, and he built a fantastic business to the extent based on that value proposition and that culture, if you like, because culture eats strategy for breakfast, as we probably already know, and his strategy to be tactical did him quite well. And he made 7.4 billion. He was the majority shareholder in Sun Microsystems when he sold it to Oracle in 2009. That was after the financial crisis, so that his shares would have approximately halved over that period of time. So he made a tidy sum by building a value proposition that was distinctive, that was taking advantage of business right here, right now. And I believe that's the mindset that we need to be adopting for our businesses. Okay, so here we go. So two kinds of lead generation, if you remember what I was saying. That is active lead generation and passive. And I believe that passive lead gen comes from four sort of main areas, which is your website, which is your 24/7 shop window, if you like. Your LinkedIn, what your LinkedIn headline is telling people, in an active sense, when they wander onto your LinkedIn profile, when they discover your profile from searching or whatever it happens to be. Your social media messages, the messages that you're putting out there, and to a lesser extent, trade shows and events as well. So even though you're actively jumping into a pool, when you're there, you're kind of passive, you're receiving leads. I won't talk too much about that because we just can't do that right now. So website, does it clearly state what you do for a living? So if you were having a conversation, you were giving me a 60-second pitch right here, right now, could I clock that, go to your website and say, oh yeah, that confirms what I just heard you tell me? Or does it lead to confusion? That's really important. So the hallmark of any good company, no matter how small or no matter how big, is alignment. Alignment of messages to clients. That's the hallmark of any great company. Now, SEO is also part of your passive lead generation, although it's an active piece of work. It's really created around your website, because actually what you want to do is SEO is search engine optimization, for those of you who don't know that, and that's about making your website searchable, visible, findable by Google on the web. And your website also needs to be, one of the dynamics it needs to be is frictionless trade. Don't put any hurdles in the way of customers that are trying to buy something from your website, if indeed your website does allow people to buy stuff directly from it. And I have an example for that. I used to do the sales and marketing for a particular master's program for a university. And my example was that live chat, we've all been on live chat with Amazon when we're talking about a product, we want a little bit more information, etc. So you understand the principle. So this master's program was $80,000. I didn't even know you could spend $80,000 on a master's program, but apparently that's a drop in the bucket compared to some programs. So I thought, when are people going to be searching for master's programs? Probably during their lunchtime. So I had the desk manned between lunch. I would man it most of the time on my phone, and I would get one or two of the people in the office to manage the desk. And so that if anyone that wanted more information on this master's program, they could ask that question, we would get it answered. Well, little did I know that people aren't searching for master's programs during their lunch hour. Far from it. They're searching for their master's programs at 6 in the morning, before the children are up, at maybe 10 o'clock in the evening, when all the children are in bed, the house is becoming quiet, they can concentrate, or even because it's a global world, it's a global business, it's a global master's program. Because of time zone differences, we were getting live chat requests at 2 in the morning. And what that was a fantastic way of receiving leads that at any time of the day, so you can be straight on it with a customer, with an inquiry. And that brings me to another point. Leads have a bit of a half-life. You need to be right on the button. So there's no point in getting a lead from your website or Facebook or whatever it is at 8 in the morning and not responding until after work, 5 in the evening. People will have lost interest. So here's a learning outcome for you. You need to be straight on it with leads, while the customers, again, we're talking about buying cycle, selling cycle. Get involved in their buying cycle and be right on the money. Okay, right, moving on. So number 2 method of passive lead generation is your LinkedIn profile. And what does it say about you and your place in the business world? So your LinkedIn profile is around people. First thing people are going to see is your photo. So real back to basics. Is it well lit? Can they see your face? Is it an accurate representation of you now? How effective is your LinkedIn profile at generating leads for you? Are people actively making contact with you, building connections? If they're not, then maybe you need to look at that. What's your social selling index score, SSI score? Not right now, but perhaps afterwards you can Google LinkedIn social selling index and it will give you a rank, where you are in your industry, where you are in your network, in terms of your presence, your relationships, your persona, if you like, online. It's a really fascinating exercise to do. Not for this morning though. If your headline, I mentioned this earlier, what does your headline say about you? If it's as nebulous or as waffly as manager at self-employed, that's not good enough. It will need to say, I'm a professional sales coach. I'm a virtual administrator providing services to manufacturing companies. It needs to be specific so that people say, I know what Sue does. I know what Keith does. And that, because people have a need to put you in a box, whether you like it or not, that need, that human need is there. And then you need to proactively connect with relevant others. Are you doing that? And if you're not, then I'm going to suggest that you take a look at inleads.co.uk as a way of doing that. InLeads basically is an automated program where you can connect with loads of people that you want to connect to in a much shorter space of time than you would otherwise be able to connect with just by searching the web late at night or whatever people do. Okay, right. So, and trade shows, so I wouldn't talk about, they're here because they serve a purpose, but we are 6 to 8 months away before any activity in that area. But you probably do need to start thinking about which ones you're going to go to in the next 2 or 3 months or so. And don't worry, they'll let you know when they're happening. Okay, so now going to hand over to Sarah Tomaszewska, and Sarah's going to talk about online ads, and in fact I'm going to post that bit just after, so let's carry on. Now we're going to move into active lead gen, and just 1 second, we're going to come back in just 1 second. Brilliant. Right, okay, let's go again. Okay, we talked about passive lead generation, that stuff that's probably already there that you can take advantage of. So let's make sure we've got it right. It's always selling for us. Now here's the active stuff. The active stuff is where you have to literally actively jump in, get busy. So what do we do? Active lead generation, I think, consists of 4 parts. There may be more, but they'll fit under subheadings. But if you look at these headings as sort of subject matter headings, if you like, we will capture more than 90% of the activity. So LinkedIn, again, that has a passive side, what your profile that's just sat there, is that getting you leads? If it's not, we can talk about that, and I'll give you some pointers already. The active side of LinkedIn is where you're proactively connecting with the relevant audience. So not just after any old numbers, going back to it's who knows you, your brand, your persona, what you're all about. So proactively connect with your target market, people that, so if you're selling PPE to the NHS, then you need to connect with NHS executives, with procurement organisations, with arm's length bodies, with all sorts of people in relation to moving your product or moving your service. When I say moving, I mean selling, of course, your product or your service into your target market. You're going to have to get busy. Now, just to let you know, LinkedIn allows you a maximum of 30,000 first line connections, people that you are directly connected to. Okay, you're allowed 30,000 of those. So I invite you, maybe not, well, maybe right now, maybe not, but just think about how many first line connections have you got? Have you, and that depends upon how long you've been on LinkedIn, how long, how old you are, how long you've had a career for. I've had a career longer than most, maybe, so understandably I might have more connections than others, but I still haven't got enough. So given that your goal is to get to 30,000 relevant connections, if you're only at 200 connections right now, you need to up your game and up your number of connections so that more people know you online. It's as simple as that. So if on your current sort of trend on number of connections, you're growing each day, each week, each month, whatever it is, when will you hit 30,000 connections, given your current rate of your current connection rate? Is it going to be next year, or is it going to be when you're 117 years old? Up to you. But that's just the kind of mindset that I just wanted to lead you through to. And next, we talked about that phrase I heard earlier on during the week, which is cold calling is dead. Now, this is a bit like religion, actually. You either get it or you don't. And if you don't, then I would ask you, what are you doing in place of it? Now, even if I go to seasoned sales professionals, people who do sales for their living, for their company, how many people really like cold calling? Now, the answer might surprise you that very few people really enjoy cold calling, even seasoned sales professionals. I quite enjoy cold calling. I have to get myself in the right mindset, but you have to get yourself in the right mindset for almost everything these days. But cold calling absolutely serves a purpose in going to market to target a particular person in a particular organization. So I want to try this with you for the next 30 seconds, if you like, wherever you're watching from. If it's all quiet, then perhaps you can do this for yourself, or if not, you can just perhaps close your eyes and imagine it. But let's imagine that I'm going to phone you. You're my target prospect, if you like, working for the company that you work for. And I'd really like to introduce myself to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my phone right now, and I am going to, it's going to ring your end. You're going to pick up the phone. You're going to answer the phone. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get your attention. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to say, hey, Sue, this is Keith Rozelle. I've got to be honest, it's a bit of a cold call. Have you got 30 seconds? So the first thing I've done with Sue or whomever I'm calling is I've said, look, I've got to be honest, it's a bit of a cold call. I know it's a bit of an interruption, but it's only going to take 30 seconds. Can we go? Now, I will tell you that does a couple of things. First of all, that calls it out. How often have you answered the phone not knowing the number that's ringing you, and they take 30 seconds, a minute, even to get to the point before you discover it's a call from a call center or whatever, and then you're upset because they've stolen your time. So I think it does two things. I think it shows respect for the other person's time, and by showing respect for the other person's time, I will tell you that more than 90% of people, provided you met the basics, like you're phoning at a reasonable hour, like people can understand what you're saying, you're speaking clearly and from a position of authority. Most people would say, if it was Sue that I was calling, she would say, Yeah, okay, Keith, if it's 30 seconds, shoot. And first of all, so I'm going to take you back to the first or second webinar that we had, which is around value proposition. What's your 30-second or 60-second pitch? That's the place for you to be exercising your pitch. Now, you'll end that pitch with, it's called, by the way, it's called a pattern interrupt, because that person that you're calling is almost certainly doing something else. They might even be in a meeting. They might have their heads in a spreadsheet. They might be reflecting on a document that they're going to write, all sorts of things during the business day that they could be doing. But one thing they won't be doing is waiting for your call. So it's called a pattern interrupt. It's to get them to stop doing what they're doing and to listen to you by giving them an upfront contract. Listen, if you give me 30 seconds of your time, I'll be brief, I'll be to the point, and then you can decide whether it's worth continuing the conversation. So we've done all those things, and I've taken 4 minutes to explain something that should only take 30 seconds. But the point was, I was explaining what was going on. 90% of the time, that person will say, yes, okay. Or they might say, I'll tell you what about you phone me later on this afternoon when I'll have finished this spreadsheet meeting, pick an activity that they'll have finished. And you can say, okay, what's the best sort of time? They will tell you, okay, 2:30, 3 o'clock, whatever it happens to be. Make sure you phone back at that time, excuse me, to maximize your chances of getting that crucial 30 seconds with that person that you've been wanting to target for a long time, and to give them your 30-second pitch. And if you haven't got a 30-second pitch prepared, make sure you get one that's really crisp, punchy, that's going to get you a response. Okay, right. So in that 30 seconds, you will tell them basically what you do. I'm an accountant. I'm a virtual administrator. I typically work with manufacturing companies or people with less than 10 employees that typically don't have a budget for an assistant. They just want to buy 5 hours a month or 5 hours a week of time, and that should be enough to diarize my appointments or whatever it happens to be. I'm just choosing something really kind of rudimentary or kind of basic, but essential at the same time. Though I typically you give them a choice, typically deal with this kind of company or this size of company. I don't suppose you're grappling with any of those areas, are you? Get some feedback. They either are or they aren't. And if they're not, then you say, oh, I didn't think you would do. It's a bit of a call, it's a bit of a chance. But here's the key. While we're on the phone with that person, and again, they have a network of people. They have a network of people that are known to them, that they know, and you can then ask them, okay, you're not interested in that market just right now. Do you have anyone in your network that is interested in that product or service right now? Could you introduce me? Could you give me a name and let them know I'll be calling? That is gold dust. And make sure you call that person again. If you can use the name of that person that introduced you, that becomes not a cold call, but a warm call. There's an existing relationship to sort of piggyback off the back of. And it'll be fantastic even if they could drop that person a line, giving them an email to say, so-and-so is going to be calling you. I hope that's okay. The prerequisite is that you've done your job right, that you've presented yourself professionally on the phone with confidence, with gusto, and that you're keen and professional and businesslike. Those are the prerequisites. Okay. And the goal of a cold call is to get a bit more time. So if they answer, yes, actually, that is something I'm interested in, then, okay, have you got 15 minutes to go into more detail, or do you want me to schedule something else? And they'll almost certainly say, can we schedule a time? So you will then, okay, while we're on the phone, when's best to have this 15-minute call? They will then tell you, okay, it's Thursday at 9 o'clock or it's Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Send them an Outlook invite. So you'll need their email address to do that, and then send them an outline agenda of what it is that you want to talk about. That's 2 or 3 line items, and this is crucial, invite them to add on anything to that list that they want to talk about, because it's their time as well. And whatever they add on to that is gold dust. That gives you real insight into their organization and what's going on in their business world. Okay, so that's what to do. And if it's a no, it's a no. You've only wasted 30 seconds. Have a great day. Cut yourself off, move on to the next thing. And then when you've got a structure for cold calling, you'll be much more confident. There's less risk involved, because people are, the number one thing people are worried about when it comes to cold calling is rejection. And just, this is a very big subject matter, but I will tell you, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the idea that you're going to them with. It's not a rejection of you. They don't know you well enough to reject you just yet. Okay, let's move on. Now, we talked about referrals. Now, I've seen, and I've been invited to a number of BNI in particular. They're really big in the networking circuit. Of course, you can't do face-to-face networking, in-person networking at the minute, but lots of these networking groups, BNI, Ralph Watson's Coffee and Natter International Networking Group is going on just now. Coffee and Natter are a big UK-wide organization, and networking is at the heart of all that they do. Fantastic organization, but there are others. BNI, I believe, is global, so there'll be, in fact, we've been on the line to Canada already this week, so there are lots and lots of opportunities to engage, either as a visitor or as an active member of those groups. So you can still, they're big in referral marketing. So that's a massive opportunity just now, where you can talk to each other, you can network, you can pitch. You must make sure you've got a crisp, punchy pitch that's easy to understand and get straight to the point of what it is you do and the kind of customers, referrals that you're looking for, and that will get you involved. And then, of course, networking, face-to-face networking, we can't do, so let's kind of move on. Okay, right, so, excuse me, here we go. We have covered a lot of ground today, and I don't apologize for rushing through it all. I'll send you the link to this recording, and perhaps you can listen to it and get some tips. But here we go. Here's summing up. There are two types of lead generation. There's active lead generation and there's passive lead generation. So active will come around getting the right elevator pitch for your company's offer. If we're going to be cold calling, we need to get that pitch just right, really crisp, really understandable. If you go to what's your value proposition, the first or second webinar, I think it is, in the series, and you've got the link for that, then listen to that again. I talk you through a cold call that's been made, quite a famous movie, and you'll get some hints and tips from that. And if not, my contact details will be at the end of this, and I can perhaps talk to you there. It's the concept of upfront contracts. If, conditionality, if I get straight to the point, will you give me 30 seconds of your time? The hit rate, the positive outcome rate of those kind of calls is above 90%. 90%, you won't necessarily get a deal or a sale out of that call, but you will get the chance to pitch 90% of the time. And if you're not, come back to me and I'll help you understand what's wrong. Okay, and confirm next steps. Getting a commitment. Let the customer know what's going to happen next. Make them feel more comfortable that you're in control, you know what you're doing. No one wants to be dealing with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. That just doesn't feel good or safe at this point in time. So that's active lead generation. It can also take place on LinkedIn, of course, as well, where you're actively connecting with people. And that's a really big subject area as well. If you've got any questions, come back to me. My contact details will be at the end of this webinar. Got into passive lead generation as well. Don't take any what we call sales channel, your go-to-market channels, which we talked about in webinar number 3. Don't take anything for granted. Test what works best for you in your business. It takes time, but it's worth pursuing. So if Facebook advertising is the best, is delivering fantastic results for your business, then more power to you. Do more Facebook testing. Facebook advertising. But if it's not working for some reason, consult an expert. Sarah is excellent, and she will work with you to get the right kind of advertising campaign online. Again, test what's working for you, and if you can get to the point where you can understand that amount of business came from that kind of advertising campaign. Is called cost to acquire. How much did it cost me to get that lead to make that sale? When you understand that, you will, and you understand that across Facebook, across Google, pay-per-click, across any other, even LinkedIn you can advertise on. When you understand that and you get to the optimum costs, the lowest cost for the biggest return, then you know what channel is best for your business. And then develop around KPIs. So the impressions that you're getting, click-through rates, ad score, relevance, cost per lead, cost to acquire business. These are all really, really important stats for your business. They don't replace activity though, so try not to get what we call analysis paralysis. Make activity, generating leads, acting on those leads is absolutely paramount for your business. Then we'll look at Google Analytics. There are other experts on the line here who can point you in the direction of understanding what's going on with your online persona, with your website, how it's performing. But it's one of the best free tools on the market, and I would encourage you to understand that as quickly as you possibly can. And also, I referenced this earlier on in the webinar. When you do get a lead, make sure you're in touch with that lead as soon as possible, within 15 minutes if you can, while it's hot. These things have a half-life. If you get a lead coming to you at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, excuse me, and you don't get back to them until later on in the afternoon, they may have gone somewhere else, or actually even worse, they'll be left with a poor impression of your business, no matter how busy you are. Even if it's, you get a lead, even if you have to say, I'm really sorry, I'm in a meeting, or I'm driving, or I'm traveling, or whatever it is to say, can I come back to you in a couple of hours? You've completed that circuit, if you like, and you've started a conversation, and they'll come back to you with either a question or, yes, look forward to your call, or something like that. But then you've established communication, you've bought yourself some time. Okay. Ask yourself, so what? On your website, every single word, especially on the landing page, needs to earn its place. Ask yourself, so what? If your website says, we're high integrity, we're high quality, da 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 da, I tell you what, your competition will be saying that, and there's no differentiator. So what? I mean, it's a given for me that you should be acting with high integrity, and that it should be high quality what you're delivering. That's a given. You don't need to say that. You need to get to the relevance, the accuracy of what it is, how you benefit people, the benefits that their company could get from dealing with your company in a way that's differentiated. And you can look at webinar number 2 for value proposition to work out, to determine how to create a differentiated value proposition for your business versus the other myriad businesses. There are 200 million businesses in the world, so that's quite a job to differentiate yourself from every single one of them, even if that's possible. But your main competitors, you will need to be acting on difference, because if you remember, if you don't differentiate yourself, then the client's only way to differentiate your quote, proposal, whatever it happens to be, with someone else's is how much. That's not a good place to be. And a call to action. What is the call to action? Is it go to the website, see what the latest deals are? Is it let's get together for a cup of coffee? But be definite, be concise and precise, and be very clear what it is the next step should be. Your social selling index. You can Google that on right now with LinkedIn Social Selling Index. It will take you to a page. You can learn more about that. You can work out your social selling index. How many people know you online? Where are you in relation to your industry? Where are you in relation to your network? And from that, it will help you deduce, okay, I need to be more active. I need to be better at whatever it happens to be, whatever the recommendations are from the report that you get. Come back to me, even I can help you get to the bottom of that. And then make a goal. We talked about 30,000 connections being the maximum on LinkedIn. So are you going to get there next week? Are you going to get there when you're 117 years old? That's kind of the way that we're talking about this. But the point is, you may never get there. The point is, you need to be growing your network at pace to develop leads right here, right now. Okay, so here's a quick exercise. Knowing what you now know about lead generation, what improvements are you going to make to your LinkedIn profile? I'm just going to pause a few seconds for you to think and reflect on that. What improvements, what changes are you going to make to your LinkedIn profile? Is it a more appropriate photo? Is it a better banner headline? Is it a more concise about Sue, Dave, Nigel, Keith? Okay, and the second thing is, what one other change will you make in your business to generate more leads? Are you going to create a Facebook advertising campaign like Sarah is going to talk us through? Are you going to pick up that phone? Are you going to proactively target someone from LinkedIn? Are you going to pitch them your business like we've seen in an earlier part of the webinar series? Or I hope I've been able to talk you through some sort of script around pitching your business. Reflect on that just a little bit. So what one other change are you going to make to generate more leads for your business right here, right now? Okay. So we're into the wrapping up stage now. Thank you for your attention today. I do want to bring this to your attention because in leads, we're going to hear from James separately, but from James Roscoe. But in leads is an automated program, if you like, that will get you more relevant leads more quickly than you ever could by being sat in front of the telly, going ding, 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 ding. It will help you generate your more first-line connections. And if they're relevant, and the more relevant people that know you, that know what you're about, then the more leads, the more business that you will attract as a result of that. And I've been working within leads now for just over 2 or 3 weeks. They have a program on at the moment, a free trial offer. Now anyone can get that free trial offer. But if you come and ask me for the link, then you can get 25% off the first 3 months paid subscription after the free trial if you decide to take it up. There's no obligation there. But even if you take the 2-week free trial, you will end up with several hundred more first-line LinkedIn connections, relevant LinkedIn first-line connections than you have right here, right now. So you have nothing to lose, everything to gain. I strongly encourage you to take that up right here, right now. If you want 15 minutes with me, one-to-one, and you've got a specific question that needs to be, that you want to ask and you want an answer or a point of view on, fantastic, get in touch with me. My details will be up on the screen in just a minute, but 15 minutes, no obligation, no charge for that. I'd love to get in and help while this COVID-19 crisis is affecting the world, frankly. And then a quid pro quo. I mentioned much earlier in the webinar that people are hurting. And if you've got if you are just frankly out of budget, but you've got a skill or a service or something you think that I would benefit from, I don't know, website development, whatever happens, there's always something that needs doing. Get in touch with me. Don't be embarrassed. Ask me the question, and if we can do something, then I will. And if we can't, then I'll be able to tell you straight away. You won't have wasted any time. But if you want to have a discreet conversation like that, and I can tell you that two of them actually have already happened. So that seems to have hit a bit of a nerve. Then please do reach out to me, explain the situation, and I'll see what I can do to help. But you've got to help me too, because we all need some help, right? And then if you want to come to me for some coaching, while this webinar series is on, there are 4 weeks left of this webinar series that I'm offering my hourly rate at 50% off. And then come to me, which means it's £125 an hour rather than $250 an hour. Then come to me, we'll get some time scheduled in, and I know a number of you have already done that already. Thank you very much. Then come to me with that, and we will get something, you'll get some really positive results. Typically, people stick with me for a minimum of 3 sessions, I recommend, to get some real value out of it. But I've had clients that, for the last 18 months, 2 years, and they come and go as their needs flex. And some of those clients, by the way, I've never even met. We just meet over Zoom. It was worked really, really well the last few years for me, and there's no reason to change. And I want to give all my money, keep all my money in my business. I don't want to be spending it with the gas companies or spending it on travel on trains or anything like that. So if we can do it via Zoom, that works for me. Okay, so if there are any other questions, then stick them in the chat box or send me a message. Coming up on the screen. The next webinar is going to be this coming Wednesday, 13th May, 11 a.m. It's going to be called What's Your Deal Qualification Strategy? Or in other words, discovering your client's needs. Number 5 out of 9 in the webinar Wednesday series. And we'll be helping you create fantastic questions that get you great information about your client, and will impress the client in the same way, and it will be boosting of your credibility because of your insightful questions. Okay, so thank you for listening in. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is probably how you're going to get this link in the first place. You can drop me a line at keith@salesmarvel.co.uk, or you can search salesmarvel.co.uk. There are all kinds of fantastic material on there. And for the moment, it's all free. So no matter where you are in the world, thank you again. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. Thank you very much. Have a brilliant rest of the week. Stay safe, and I hope to see you on Wednesday, the 11th, no, Wednesday the 13th of May at 11 a.m. Thank you very much.